Hello, I want to welcome everyone to the Power of Our Story. We are a place of safety and connection for those who protect us. And we do this through sharing stories in a healing and judgment-free zone. So today we welcome Chad Michael Bruckner. Chad is a performance coach, motivational speaker, and published author from Allentown, Pennsylvania. Chad currently leads 2 small businesses and coaches youth sports. Chad served 13 years in law enforcement in multiple roles, such as patrolman, detective, and undercover officer. Chad also served 8 years in the U.S. Army Infantry and led combat missions in Iraq. Chad is a passionate advocate for veterans and police officers. Chad's mission is to inspire, unite, encourage, and empower professionals to reach their full potential. He has developed training programs in wellness, leadership, and resiliency, and publicly speaks on these issues. Chad is guided by his faith and core values and has dedicated his life to serving others. Chad holds a master's degree in digital forensics and a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Chad is married to the love of his life, Kristen, a first-grade teacher, and also they have 3 children. Chad loves Philly sports, music, and film. You can connect with Chad on socials. So I'm going to have his contact information on the chat here, and then also on the description on his YouTube talk on our channel. So again, Chad, I want to welcome you. I just appreciate your friendship. I appreciate just your heart for caring so much. That has been my favorite thing about our friendship, about the things that you have shared. So it is just an honor to have you on today. So Chad,
Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you,
welcome.
Sarah. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. It's been amazing building a relationship with you and everybody in the Power of Our Story. I watched the video, this Wounds to Wisdom video you made recently, and watching everybody's face interact and enjoy it with each other and share and support with each other. It's a truly special community you've built. So just a testament to you and everybody else. Yeah, so my journey here and I know I've been on before, and I remember the last time I was on, I was kind of new on this personal discovery journey of kind of figuring out my new chapter, and I was so early in on it that I was sharing it kind of where I was then, but I've learned so much since. I've been so far. I kind of wanted to share where I've been, in the last 18 months or so, because I think everybody can relate to this, and looking at just listening to everybody else's story is this search for purpose, this search for a desire to continue to serve. And we take that uniform away, and we take the gun or the badge, for my case, or the rifle when I was in the army, whatever everyone's modality was. You take that away, and there's such a void that is left, that every one of us, if we're really being honest, if we're really being authentic to who we are, when you leave, I've talked to some people and say, it doesn't bother me, I moved on. If you're really being honest, I think a large percentage of us really still have that hole that comes with when you don't serve anymore, when you really care about people and you really care about the mission and what you're doing. So for when I left policing in 2021, I ran to entrepreneurship. This is what I say. This is what I told people at the time. I ran to entrepreneurship. The truth is, being honest, is I ran away from policing. I ran away from this part of my life, and I ran to entrepreneurship, but I ran from policing. I think that distinction is important because, I was half looking back, half looking forward. I was still trying to pick up the pieces, put things back together, make some understanding of the world around me, the situation when I went through with the PD, how things kind of seemed to go so well and how it started to not go that way, and trying to make sense of it, understand the human psyche of it all. And then when you start to peel that back in those layers, you start to answer some of those questions. And when you start to get the answers you don't like, the answers that keep you up at night, about corruption, about deeper issues, those are the things that for me stirred my soul. So, and it's one of those things. 18 months ago, or 2 years ago, tried to pretend to not know some of the. I remember telling my wife this. I wish I could unknow some of the things I've been learning in this journey, but that's not how it's supposed to work. It's things, you got to keep learning more things. You keep trying to make sense of it all, understand, and keep pushing forward through your mission. So I think for me, that is purpose, is for all of us, is filling in that purpose. So as I started to kind of search for that new purpose, started to realize the messiness of it was, I don't know. When you don't know, I already have all these ideas. Maybe I want to write a book, although I never sought out to do that. But I have stories to tell, or maybe I want to be a performance coach, or maybe I want to go back and be a cop. I applied to be a cop. Couldn't even get an interview. Think about that in this crazy, this world we live in today, right? So where recruitment is so bad. But I think that there was, God is speaking to me on a bigger purpose. I don't know what that is. I was learning to take the no's, learning to take the rejections, trying to figure out where my fit is in this new chapter. And so I was throwing all this stuff at the wall like an abstract artist, just messy paint. And but that was intentional, because I learned, like, okay, I looked at the wall and this doesn't look good. This is messy. I don't want this. I don't want to be involved. But over here, I threw this at the wall with no real plan. And as the paint starts coming down the ceiling or coming down the walls and they mix together, I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty nice. It's not what I sent out to paint or draw or do, but as I look at it and be comfortable with looking at it, be comfortable acknowledging that the paintings of the past, the masterpieces that we thought we're putting together, those just aren't here. We can complain about it. We can cry about it. We can make excuses for it. We can blame others, which is what I did sometimes. Or we can blame ourselves and say, it's all up to us. If I want to make another masterpiece, which I do, which we all do, that's on me. I got to create that. So that's kind of that journey for the last few years, is really peeling back the layers on human performance and understanding that we got to stop blaming. I had to stop blaming circumstances, stop blaming people, stop living in the past. And there was a movie, actually, and I tell this story because you connected me with Jeremy not too long ago, another, kind of a new face in the power of our story. But Jeremy and I have been texting kind of behind the scenes and really building a relationship, spiritual support, really supporting each other's spiritual journeys. And Jeremy got me to watch this movie called The Shack. And it's on Hulu. If you guys have seen it, it's 2017. Sam Worthington's in it. He is the lead actor from Avatar. But he recommended this movie to me, Sarah, only a few weeks ago. I've watched it 5 times since. And it just ripped open what I was feeling at that time, specifically. And I think everybody on this platform could probably benefit from that movie in some way or another, because it really goes into themes of loss, themes of healing, themes of moving on, themes of growth. So just really man, I was bawling like a baby. I watched it the 5th time and cried probably more on the 5th time watching it, when I knew what was coming, than the first time, if you think about that. Almost because I knew what next scene was going to come, almost like I knew what path I needed to go down. I knew what holes I needed to fill in with good, with love, and not hate. So, and that's really what this movie speaks to, is how do we take these painful experiences, these holes in our heart, and we fill them with flowers. We plant trees in them. We fill them in with all this goodness and love. And it's hard. I think it's hard sometimes, because just to stand at the hole, it choked up there. Just to stand at the hole and look down at that empty hole, that's painful, just in and of itself. I got to stare at this hole that, when I looked at it before, there used to be a beautiful bush here. Now it's an empty hole. You got to stare at it. You got to look at it. You got to be comfortable with it. You have to understand that was then. It's not now, and it's not going forward. It's not going to be there. So I think that's a little victory for me, was standing and looking at these holes, figuratively in my head, and then starting to fill them in with flowers and weed, pull the weeds, fill them with flowers, and all these positive things, which is why I think sometimes I struggle to maintain a little balance lately. And it's, even my wife says this, Chad, you're going a million miles a minute. And it's, and I tell her, I think, babe, I got more holes to fill. There'll be a time when I slow up, I think, but every time I talk to somebody that has a painful story, another hole, I got to go fill it. Every time I interact with a client who doesn't have a house, can't feed himself, shit, another freaking hole. I got to fill this, and it's just, we get more holes throughout the day, and I got to fill that with more good things. So I think that's okay. I've learned that that's just part of the journey I'm on, is to kind of live in both and understand that there's some amazing things in our lives, in my life, and some hard things in my life. And, but that's okay. That's living life, And one thing in the last 18 months I tried to do was, and I did do, was, I want to get off all medications. I wanted to get off all crutches. And these are for me. This is my journey. I don't advocate this for anybody, but I wanted to get off all medications, all things that made me just stop being who I was. Not that they didn't work in the time, being on antidepressants in that moment in 2021, but I never was on my whole life. Probably should have been on when I came back from Iraq or was undercover for those years. Probably should have been on some sort of medical assistance just to help me through those times, but I wasn't. I was, ego and didn't think I need anything. But 2021, I go on these things and they helped me get through these moments. But I really wanted to get back into feeling who I am, even the bad stuff. I think sometimes I numbed myself out with just, whether it's drinking, we've all been there, drinking, even prescription medications that you're lawfully prescribed. We take those, I use antidepressants as an example. Those affected me in a very healthy way, and I really appreciate it for that. But I started to realize that maybe I'm being altered in some sort of way. Maybe my existence is being altered. I don't know. They helped me, but I wasn't feeling like I was as authentic to myself. So I said, you know what? I want to try to get off medication. I want to see how my body feels. I want to see how my mind feels, how my soul reacts to it. It was a little challenging because, especially coming off the antidepressants, even though I was weaning myself off, taper myself off properly, I thought, there's some withdrawal effects that come with that, some emotional effects that come with that. And you bring that back into your household, you introduce that to your family, you have to make a pivot, make more reassessments and readjustments. There's conflict with that, in your spouse, and observations that get made. And these are all just part of the things that happen behind the scenes that nobody, for all of us that would do this work, nobody gets to see, nobody gets access to that shadow work. But I think that is the most important work. And that's what I found. So I think I really embraced a mindset to embracing all that stuff like that, those therapy and treatment and healing and growth and overcoming and bouncing back. Like those things are beautiful. I mean, freaking beautiful if we embrace it as beautiful. And to do that, we have to push past the shame. So that was for me, what I had to do a few years ago was really 2 years ago was push through the shame, because I realized I never wanted to write a book until it's funny, when I applied for a police chief position in 2022, I knew I probably wasn't going to get it, but I was realistic to think I'd probably get an interview, just based on everything I've been through and what I've lived and the things I've seen, the things I've done, experiences I've been through. I thought that I would get me an interview in front of the board so they could hear, different thought or different modality. What I found out was kind of the political reverb to that. How, of course, I didn't get an interview. I was cut out of the process in some respects. I didn't get any notification that other applicants got. Just a total, like, you realize, okay, you start to hit the target with some thoughts and feelings about what you think can be better, and that might not be received well by people that you're speaking it to. So those are processes you have to work through, and those are rejections you have to work through. Trying to make a system better means you sometimes have to take personal steps backwards. That's what I learned, and that sacrifice. Bear with me for a second. That sacrifice that few people ever see, except like your spouse, people in your inner circle that nobody ever know about, the things you lose. That's hard. That's hard because you can't talk about that, right? You can't make a post about it. You can't share it because you make it about yourself. So you just have to take the losses and keep moving to support others and do what's right. And yeah, that's some hard stuff. Taking some of those arrows from people that you expect to be there, people they expect to line up behind you for the change, and then you start to realize that, okay, this is good. You're communicating to me exactly what side you're on now. So now I know that's okay. That I'll get over this sting. I'll get over it. Now you want to make me want to fight harder. You want to make me do more. Maybe that wasn't what you tried to do with this process, but this is one process of many that I've been through. That, okay, you got my attention now. I understand how it's not even politics really, because I think we've made things, the word politics, we made that dirty. I think it's beyond that. I think it's really brokenness. It's really dysfunction, human dysfunction that we cloak in politics because people understand what that is. Oh, what's politics? I understand what that is. It's beyond that. There's nothing wrong with politics. I've learned there's nothing wrong with serving people and advocating and representing a group of people to make things better. That's what politics is. What we have done in the midst of politics is we have instituted bad people, immoral people into the role of politics. So what happens is we have now used politics as a way to describe immoral behavior. That's really what we have to get to, immoral behavior. So we have a lot of people in these key leadership roles who are just not good human beings. I don't say that with judgment because it's not my responsibility to judge, but I can say it as a human being, as an observer. I think we all have earned the right. We all have earned the right through our experiences to call things out like we see them, not be ashamed about it, not be shy about it, not sit back and say, well, I haven't, maybe I haven't done this, I haven't done that. No, we've all done things, important things, powerful things. We have to remember that. We got to look in the mirror and remind ourselves of that. That's how we get our voice into the room. It's that confidence grows from that. And it's taking those no's and rejections and not being afraid. It's taking the no's and rejections when you feel like you're getting close to what you should be doing and not turning the other way, which we all want to do when things get hard. So it's standing there with the no's, standing there with rejections, looking people back in the eye with love, which is the hardest thing sometimes, with the hardest thing. And saying, I know you don't even know what the right outcome here is, but I know what I think I know what the right outcome is. So I'm going to continue to go down this road, lead by example, set the path for people behind me, and then hope many people come and walk that path. That's the goal of this whole thing. So sorry to get so emotional. It's just, I don't get much time to process this. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. But yeah, I have a lot of blessings. I have a lot of great things going on. And I think this just gets back to, all of our stories, all of our experiences, that this is life. This is living life. It's being alive. It's being alive. There's nothing wrong with being alive. There's nothing wrong with feeling the air blow through your hair, which feeling the no's and the rejections pierce your eardrums, which feeling people do bad things in others. You happen to witness and see in that that can be bad, I know, but there also is opportunity there. And I feel like in this 2024, it's not lost on me that I think we're in a spiritual battle. I really believe that in this country, in this world. So many examples around us of this. None other. Just a very easy example for all of us to look at is when I just kind of touched on it. When you bring something up that is common sense, that everybody nods their head and agrees with, yet when you bring it to the system, it's shot down, it's bucked. There's a wall that comes up that everybody knows. It just doesn't make any sense, right? That is the opportunity. And that's where I get emotional. That's where I get fired up. That's where I get, because that's the opportunity. When people tell you that, that's where I say, okay, this is a spiritual battle. Everybody's coming to you and bringing you the same information, generally with the same advocacy, and there's being pushback to not do this when it's the right thing to do. Okay, this is beyond making a request. This is good and evil. This is right and wrong. This is a more moral battle, and we just have to call it like it is. I'm not saying everything's spiritual or moral, but when you know something is right and we do the opposite, to me, that's morality. That's not legal, like legality. That's not ethical. That's morality, to do the opposite of what is right. So it gives me great hope when we see all these things that we all have seen in our journeys, all have seen in our path, all have experienced firsthand, a lot of pain, a lot of holes. But that's okay. Those are opportunities to fill those holes. In 2024, we get to come together. We get to band together. We get to write a narrative that we get to have a part of and a piece of, that the silence of it and the taking and suffering, those days can be over if we choose, but we got to make that choice. We got to raise our hand. We got to select ourselves to come back into the regime of service, however that is. Maybe that's our purpose when we're looking for it. It's we got to find it ourselves. We have to say, you know what? The purpose, I'm waiting for people to find me for purpose. I'm waiting for somebody to hand me my next opportunity. Maybe I got to create it. Maybe I have to build it. Maybe my next purpose is pushing through my own fears and laying my heart and my soul that I know what I have to do, but I'm too afraid to do it. Maybe that is the battle for all of us, lies within. So instead of looking without and blaming, man, we just got to look within. And I think that can breed so much confidence in all of us, breed so much love instead of resentment, right? I think social media has created resentment where we look at each other's journeys, we compare to each other's journeys. It's human to do that. But I think that creates obstacles, it creates limitations, it creates barriers to impact. And if we can push through that by realizing that we ourselves individually already have everything we need. And it's not cliche to say it, because I think anxieties and fears are the devil. They are the things that hold those things at bay. And if we can push through the fears, push through the anxieties, there's ways to do it. We've all have different ways in our lives. Everyone in this group has been through empowering journeys to find ways to heal and bounce back. So whatever that is that we can share with others, and the more we pull together, like, hey, I did it this way. David did it this way. Sarah did it this way. Everyone's doing it different ways, but guess what? We got to the end the same. Oh, really? Yeah, we share this kind of stuff, but that's how we help by bringing the silence and tamping it out and, ripping open those, pulling out the old cheerleading. My wife's those big cheerleading cones, like amplifiers, and start screaming it to the world from the rooftops that, everything that we have been through, everything that we've experienced is okay. It is normal if you have been in abnormal situations to have these kind of reactions. Think about that. Being in combat, seeing dead children as a cop, or those things are abnormal events. So of course it's natural to have reactions that are normal, meaning emotional distress, mental distress. Those are normal reactions to abnormal events. And we just have to normalize that by saying, yeah, you're right. And then here's how we bounce back. Here's how we empower people. I remember getting diagnosed with PTSD in 2005, coming back from Iraq. And multiple clinicians told me, like, this is a life sentence, or not using these words, but this is a life disease, or a something you'll have with forever, and I just believe that to be true. Okay. And I didn't let that affect me, but of course that sits in your head and your heart. Like when things are going good, you don't think about it. When things are going bad, you think, well, I was told that this is how it's always going to be, and it's wrong. I've learned it's wrong. At least for me, it's wrong to think that. I'm not saying that we don't carry symptoms in throughout our whole life, that we have triggers that come back. I think we all experience that, but I don't believe that PTSD is, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's just my experience, but I'll give you mine. I just don't see it being a reason to not make a choice to push through the fears and anxieties. It's not to mitigate everything that's ever happened. It's just to make a choice that I know this happened. I know this is hard. I got to stand at the gates of hell if need be to address everything that I'm feeling, because damn, this hurts. One example I give, and this could be helpful to other people, is, and I've gotten pretty good comfortable talking about this, although it does, today it sits a little heavier than usual. But, of all the things we did in Iraq in combat, the thing that bothered me the least at the time, which is, I'm going to tell you the story, is of all the IEDs, different engagements, there was one foot patrol when a car was barreling down at us. I'm a squad leader in E6. So I'm kind of walking off to the side of my guys, and we're all in a staggered column, and we're walking, your head's up on a swivel, doing what you're supposed to be doing. A car is barreling towards us, and we're on a movement to contact, but we're on a foot patrol. So we had vehicle support, but it wasn't right in the immediate vicinity. And the car is barreling down. Now we know when people are over there, sometimes they look kind of like right over their steering wheel. They're not looking down the road. In foreign countries, everybody has different driving habits, different populations. And so I shoot 2 warning shots off to the side of the vehicle, and the driver picks the head up, stops, slams on the brakes. I put my hand up, they stopped. Everything was fine. We continued the patrol. All of a sudden, the Iraqi soldiers come up to us, and they start kind of, panic. You start waving us down. Well, my 2 warning shots ricocheted off the street and hit some 14 to 16-year-old kid in the chest that was walking a couple clicks or half a click away. I was 24 years old when that happened. That did not affect me. I mean, I was traumatic by it. It affected me in a great way. Of course, in that moment, we put him on a vehicle. We took him back to the FOB, the base. I remember looking at his face, this panicked look in his face. And I believe this kid survived. But I kind of moved on from that compared to the other traumatic events that happened to us there. Lo and behold, as I've experienced this now, having a 14-year-old son of my own, I have made so much work on the traumatic incidents that I have addressed in my life, putting things in the proper context, looking at things from third parties, going to TRP and different resistance protocols, and just all these different modalities I've committed myself to so immensely in the last 4 years, except for that one. I never dealt with that issue. I never dealt with that event. So now that event is keeping me up at night. I see my 14-year-old son, when he makes the same face playing a video game, like, I lost a man. He goes, ah! That's like this panic face, or he fell down on the football field. And that face takes me back to that kid's face. And then it takes me back. I shot a kid in the chest. Holy shit. I'm a fucking dad. I shot a kid. And I worked through that process. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't intend to do that. But wow, I did do that. I mean, that happened. I wonder what that kid's life's like now. And I just worked myself through this conversation. And it's hard sometimes. It's hard. But I say it in the lens of PTSD is I've got more experience with it just as a user level, as a practitioner, and really immersing myself in understanding as much as I can that those are trigger warnings. Those are things that's embedded in that memory that has come up, and I'm dealing with that now at 43 when I didn't have to deal with it at 24, 19 years later. So I just share that because I think we're all on this journey of seeing hard things, doing hard things, and I don't want to say victimized, but constantly having reminders of or triggers to those past events. And I think we just show up each day, we work through them. we keep pushing through, we band together like the power of our story, and all these amazing relationships that Sarah has built and put together. And I feel like that is the path forward, is that's the path to healing, is realizing that we all have different experiences, we all come from different paths, but if we share and we connect, and then we give each other the modalities to heal and empower and grow, it's just this rising tide lifts all ships, and then everybody's out there now separate. Like, I'm not naive to think this power of our story, any group can last forever. It doesn't, it won't. It's impossible to think that. It's naive to think that. I've learned that. So what happens is, however long this group is together, we share as much as we can, and then we're going to go back into the world, and we're going to infect, we're going to spread it out to other people. And I just think that is the benefit of America on a much bigger level of 2024 and beyond, of groups like this, is really, that's the impact. Is it's not just the people in this group, it's what the power that comes out of this, the empowerment and the knowledge and the acumen and the skills that come out of this group and storytelling that then take it to everywhere else out of this group. So I'm just grateful to be a part of it. Thank you for letting me share.
Oh, let me put this on the Brady Bunch. Hang on one second. Chad, as always, I really appreciate your vulnerability. That is your superpower, along with all the good that you have done and you are doing. It is your superpower to express so authentically and help people, give people the permission, right? I just want to touch on a few things before I open this conversation up. I want to remind everyone, and Chad, whenever I look at our YouTube channel, the most views is on betrayal. And I think that is what you're hitting on so much. It is something that shakes us to the core when we wake up and realize that things are happening that are so different. You actually explained it so well in your book, Chad. So I am not going to do that justice, but it is absolutely a core shakeup when we see things a certain way and we have wholeheartedly put our whole heart into serving something, and then we realize, oh my gosh, it's really not what I thought. The words and the actions, there's discrepancy. And we have been believing the words until we see the actions totally different. And what that does to morale, and how do you recover from that and be that trusting, courageous self that's willing to trust, love, serve again wholeheartedly. And I think that is something that you address. And then again, the post-traumatic stress, it always makes me sad to hear the disorder, because just like a broken leg, it's an injury. The brain can heal. There's modalities, there's support that can heal. And you are not alone in that. Again, it is so powerful to be surrounded by the right people. Jim and I were just talking about that, and I'm a firm believer myself. And then also, I think the standout for you, Chad, and so many people who are drawn to even the book project that we're doing and the power of our story, the thing that has been so gratifying to me is that you all are people of courage over fear. And like Holly always says, I always love it. She goes, love over fear, love over fear. And it makes you more courageous to say, everything may be destroyed here by me standing up, but I can't not do it. And those are the kind of people you all are. And Chad, I just so appreciate your voice, because that is always what I hear and feel from you and see from you. So I just want to share the appreciation of so many who are so grateful for those people that are willing to have courage over fear and actually say something, or are not willing to be part of the destruction part in that. So thank you again so much, Chad. And before I open it up to everybody, is there anything that you want to respond with?
No, I appreciate it. One thing you mentioned, I'm sorry I didn't really touch on it with the book in more detail about the story, that I'm actually saving this for the book. That's better. The wounds, the wisdom. But that act of betrayal is, talking to clinicians when I started writing the book and kind of going through research mode, I really knew what I wanted to say, But I wanted to make sure that what I was saying or thinking and feeling was not like crazy. And so I just talked to so many people, and like, yeah, they're confirming kind of the thoughts I believe. And that's the more clinicians I talk to. There are especially a few that I talk to in North Dakota, New Hampshire, California. They do police work full time, full time police clinicians and first responders. And they said, yeah, the PTS, the trauma, all the stuff that you guys deal with, that's number two. I said, what's number one? This is the general consensus: is organizational betrayal, the betrayal from the administration, the organization, whatever that looks like for that person. But yeah, that was number one, and they're all saying this. It was like, wow, I thought it was just me. So my point is, when I left policing with my head low, literally, Sarah, I left thinking that nobody can relate to what I went through, because in where the area I worked in, I was the only one that I knew in that time that still to that still there's one other guy since that has left, that you can retire in Pennsylvania after 12 years. You can, it's called vesting. You can, so everybody kind of knew that was your first benchmark. You know, when you get in your first day, you get hired, everybody knows, well, 12 years is your first goal. You want to get there at least, because that you secure half a pension. After that, it's 25 in Pennsylvania. So when I got to 12 or 13 and left, like nobody actually does that. You know, it's just people talk about it. It's when I actually did it. I remember cops were like, what are you doing? This is crazy. And I'm like, that's crazy for you, but it's not crazy for me. And it's crazy that you want to make my journey crazy and you're defining it for me. But it's just, we have to remember that betrayal does not look, it does not look immediately identifiable, I think. And this is my next phase when I go into speaking and messaging for organizations and people. It does not look immediately identifiable. And that's where that's the next level of going below the surface, diving underneath the iceberg is what does that actually, what is corruption? What is organizational betrayal? Because some people have been through it and they don't even know they've been through it. And that's my next phase. I'm actually working on another project now. So I think we can help organizations make systemic change big time when they actually realize that you are perpetuating it and you are unwittingly doing it. I think that's powerful. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. And then also to add on that too, which you really were talking about, but the importance of being able to heal the brain and heal the whole moral injury is to be able to get to that point where you can see the benefit. How did that very painful journey, how did it come to benefit you, to empower you to show up now in a way that you can be very helpful? And, going through that full process, having the courage to lean forward in the healing to where you can get to the point where you see the benefit of how it has actually empowered you. That really helps us to become, as we've talked about in some other groups, better instead of bitter, because it's easy to become bitter. But that is the healing that can take place when we just lean into, okay, I'm going to get to the point where I can see the silver lining. Then I can see the benefit of how it has actually empowered me. And now I can see how I can use it to help others so they don't have to have this drawn out journey like many of us had in recovering from whatever trauma hit us. So, Chad, powerful words. Thank you so much. And Jim, what's on your mind?
You'll need to pause.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That's all right. Chad, you talked about holes, and it threw me back into the unit I was in the Rhodesian Bush War. One of the guys wrote a book, and they called the book Holes in Our Lives Forever. And those holes, geez, I tell you, those holes, man, it's like we're a dying part of time now. My generation are slowly fading away. Our country is long since gone. Our war is probably long since forgotten. And I see that hole as this tapestry that I've lived. And it's not just the Rhodesian Bush War. It's everything that followed after that. I sometimes say it's just like this God Almighty soup of stuff that's wonderful and so profoundly painful at times. And sometimes I think that those holes are in that tapestry. It's like when the threads are the stories. It's our moral injuries. It's our marriages that might have dropped along the side. It's kids we may have lost. But when you look between the threads, there's just this pool of grief. And I tell you, 70 years down the line, I watched The Shack, and when I watched The Shack, it was almost like I felt my heart was shattering. It was so painful. I almost had to step away from it, and just thinking about it, I'd go, geez, I really don't know if I'm ready to watch that again. And so what it tells me all the time, and 22 years of sitting with guys, all of us, and myself sitting across from all these guys, all the holes in our lives, year after year after year after year, and all the goodness that surrounds that, but those holes and that grief, man, we work at that forever. And what
Ah,
I've realized is that I know those holes are the things that keep my heart open. It's a funny contradiction. I'm still trying to work it out, because they're things that I'm angry about, and bitter about, and they're not even military related. They're family related. And I still realize that when I get to the grief behind that, it keeps me compassionate. I know if I don't pay attention to those holes, myself and all of my tribe, we're capable of coldness because we're so good at encapsulating. And I know that I've got to watch that coldness because it means I'm capable of not feeling, well,
mm,
looking like I'm not feeling or feeling like I'm not feeling. And so I think the healing journey is not just about the stories. It's about that grief on the edges of our souls. And I think you hit it when you said that it's the inner work we do. It's the healing work we do. And in many ways, whatever our spiritual orientation is, it's the faith work we do. So it's that mix when we just focused on the threads and the stories of our lives and we ignore the grief that weaves between it, that healing is elusive.
mm.
So
Yeah.
all I can tell you is, 70 years down the line, my friend, there are moments I still stagger, eh?
Oh, Barry, what a story, man! What a journey, and what a way to describe it. I mean, you were talking, it made me think about like so on this journey now. My best friend from the army, Fernando, was killed in Iraq, and I made a promise, to never. So I missed his funeral. I missed. I was in the police academy then, and I got out. He was still in. He got killed in 07. I was getting married the same month. I was graduating from the police academy the same month. My life was going great. I didn't want to be bothered with any negativity. I worked so hard at 25, 20 or 27 to get there. Like I didn't want to be bothered. So when he got killed, and he lived in San Antonio, and I made an excuse that I literally said I can't make it to his funeral because I was in the police academy, and then I said I'm getting married at the end of the month. Like, that there's shame that has to get worked through there. So I missed my best friend's funeral because I didn't want to revisit some of that stuff. And at the time, I kept moving, no big deal. We don't realize that those decisions that we make in our past, there's always a reverb to that. I think there's always a reward or a consequence to our decision. So now I'm on this journey and I'm ripped open. I've made a lot of progress, but I wear this memory bracelet of him and I keep it on my wrist. So it's like a bittersweet thing that I have regret for what I didn't go to his funeral. I have regret that he was killed in a war that I'm not even sure really meant anything at this point. But I also have a great admiration and appreciation for his life, for the impact he had on me. When I met him at only 22, he was in the army at 24. He's only 2 years older. He's the one who told me, he's like, you got to tell your guys you love them. You got to actually love your soldiers. I mean, I never heard anybody. I was in the army for 3 years at this point already. And nobody was talking like that. But where did he get such wisdom and sage understanding of the human psyche that to ask people to do hard things repeatedly, you have to love on them and encourage them and be positive, which he was. So, and he was like a bright shining light amongst other good people, but he just stuck out. And then he was killed, and he had 4 kids, and apparently the last I heard, his wife did not process the loss. She abandoned the family. Where those kids are at, I don't know, but they're grown now. But my point is, like, he's with me on this journey where I'm going out trying to help and make things better. And I'm reminded every day when I look down at my wrist of the pain of that, like you said, of that hole that's in my heart. But then I stand in the hole and it's almost like I shout into the hole, I can't bring you back, brother, but you're going to be with me on this mission. It's like, and that brings me peace and it brings me a smile on my face. And just like you said, it's like just this heaviness of living in the, I've been saying it lately, standing in the doorway of blessings and trauma. I mean, that's what we're drinking through a fire hose. We're getting hit with from all angles, sometimes seemingly with all the bad stuff. But at the same time, we're getting rays of sunlight with all this beauty. And we just have to learn to stand and take it and find a way to mix and match it together. And some days are bad and some days are amazing. And I don't know, man, you're right though. Some days it's heavy and it's hard.
Yeah, you know, and I think somewhere in all of this, I think is that importance of tribe. Well, just aside, I always say shame is one of the worst rocks in our backpack. And if you
Mm,
can chuck that one out quickly, behind the shame is the stuff that we need to get to. But yeah, it's hard work. And you know, in every guy I've sat with for 22 years, eventually the dialogue between us when they left the room was, I love you, brother, because we one tribe. It doesn't matter what generation they were. You know, it could have been the recent Iraqis or the Vietnam guys I started with, some of the World War II boys that were still surviving. But I realized that that declaration of love in words between us was not just for them, but in the love expressed between us, my heart was creaking open and my heart was healing.
mm,
And so it was a two-way thing. And I realized that in tribe, we speed up healing because we share grief. Yeah, we share the stories. We've all got stories of betrayal and loss. But when we share grief, we heal, and we do that in tribe.
mm.
But yeah, it's hard work, Chad. Sometimes I just wish I could find a quiet island somewhere with my wife and just run away from all of this. But yeah, it faces us every day in the most wonderful and painful way. And you know, just go back to the shack and watch it and watch it. I've just like, I might push myself to watch it again. Oh
Man, it's
man.
such a powerful movie, such a powerful story.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so and
I
wonderfully
think, and
so.
I think it's Sam Worthington, like the way he acts that movie is that's what I really resonated with. I think we all
Yeah.
have been through this such pain and despair, and you recognize like you're your own worst enemy. You can't pull yourself out of it. People around you are like reminding you of all the good you have in your life, and
Yeah.
you just can't pull yourself out. You get so angry, so resentful.
Yeah.
Man, that's what really resonated with me. I think we all been like those laying in your bed or laying in the couch with no one's around, and you're just replaying everyone that ever hurt you or victimized you or done bad things that you and you have all the solutions. You can't get them out, and nobody's ever listened to you. And you get mad and you get in your head. And it's sometimes the tribe, like you said, is great. We got to remember that we all have the ability to keep working and pushing through this thing together.
Well, you know, pain ignored, grief ignored becomes anger. And you know, we can't, it's not the doing. I mean, I tried running my grief away. And you know, even ultra marathons didn't run anything away. It just ran away from what I was running away from. And I think it's the internal work, and that's where I think you really nailed it. And I
Mm.
think we start today, we're doing internal work. We're sitting in the presence of grief, that everybody, that's the thing that bonds all of us together, not just memory, but grief. So yeah, just keep doing it, eh?
It gets easier each time. That's what I've learned.
Yeah, it does get a bit easier,
Yes.
but there's always another bit of the fabric you discover where there's another damn
It,
hole. So it's
that's the truth. Yeah. Some days you take a step forward. You're like, yeah, I figured this thing out. But then when you do that, ripped open another wound. You're going two steps
yeah,
back. But I think that's you, Barry. You hit it. And I think this is where the veteran space and just people like us, we have to realize, and sometimes we're our own worst enemy, is we take things such a step at a time. But if we recognize, we have to allow space for ourselves to reflect. I've learned that.
yeah, we
Sit
do.
somewhere beautiful and serene and think about the progress we have made. That's important once a year, I think, to do it, because you start to realize that journey, that vast, has been huge, and we don't recognize it in the moment. Like, I'm only moving a little bit. I'm not making any progress. You know, so-and-so's doing this, so-and-so's doing that. And it's like we get in our head, but that reflection every so often of where we have come from, I think, whoa, okay, I got a little further than I realized. I got to keep going.
Yeah.
So
It's the gratitude, you know, those small little micro moments, and we build them up and they just give us hope.
yeah, for sure.
But thanks, mate.
Yeah, thanks, man. Good talk.
So beautifully shared. And I think what I'm hearing too is just that, to be mindful of really talking about the grief. That really is the core of so much, isn't it? The grief, and then even the power of people pouring into you, reminding you who you really are, isn't it? I mean, there were so
Huge.
many good nuggets, but yeah, the power.
Sarah, let me tell you that real quick. I remember when I went through my demotion, it was unmeritorious in a way. Like I got called in, called off out of the blue. I was so sidetracked. I mean, now looking back, me and my partner called out some corruption. So I shouldn't be surprised that this happened. But in the time I was, because I thought I'd be getting an award for calling out things that is bad. Like that's how my naive brain worked at 39 years old or 40 years old, which is funny. But I remember when that went through that whole process, I remember being just so devastated and talk about them. This is to talk about people in your life. And my dad, who's just such a hero to me, such a mentor, he's been through so much himself, and I watch him continually pick himself up. And each time he picks himself up, by the way, he builds himself into a new version. That's what I saw as a kid, which I didn't realize was even a lesson that was being taught since I was young, and that's important. Because we all fall. It's like, what do you do when that happens? Do you go back to the same, or are you growing? Are we using this to learn? And I remember my dad, I remember I'm crying. I was so angry. I was so resentful. I mean, I can't even tell you in this interview, like this conversation, the things I was thinking and saying, because that's how bad it was. You know, I was so angry. I was so mad. I was just like, I'm the good guy. You're the bad guy. It's like, this is crazy to me. I remember telling my dad, and I remember I'm crying. I'm so emotional. And he's got his arm around me. He says, son, everything's going to be all right. And he's emotional. He's like, this is going to be the greatest thing that ever happened to you. You don't even know. And I remember yelling at him, Dad, don't you effing lie to me. You're the only one that I trust. I remember saying, I'm getting emotional. Don't you lie to me. This is not going to be okay. This is not going to be okay. Look what happened. Everything's falling apart. But it was okay. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. One of the best things, other than my family being, with me. So you bring up a great point. We sometimes shut out the people or push out the people that love us the most. And we have to just remember that they are giving us their love and care because they care about us, and we can't shut them out. As hard as it is to hear, we just have to sit there like, well, you're seeing something and I don't see. So I need to know, why do you see that? Why do you think that? Because my life looks over today professionally. So, what do you see that I'm not seeing? And I think just being curious and pushing back. But yeah, it's hard. I think we've all been through those kind of things. And you said surround yourself with people that will lift you up is important.
Yeah. Yeah. Remind you of the truth. Yeah. Thank you so much, Chad. And then Chris.
Hey, brother. Thanks for being here. First off, and I apologize for being late, but I jumped on and heard you talking about the betrayal part. I would love for us to have an hour conversation at some point. Maybe Sarah can link this up to where we have this talk, this debate, and kind of dissecting the whole betrayal thing. I think that's a huge important piece that I think that we can tackle.
Yeah.
Two, I think a huge important part, and Barry, thank you for sharing, is a lot of this PTSD conversations that we have a lot of focus on modalities and how my life is great right now, and kind of the end state. What I love about each of you and in this journey that we're all kind of on together is we talk about when we're fucked up in the moment. We talk about how we're struggling right now. We're talking about a story that happened where, Barry brought up the holes. There's always going to be holes in the side of us. And when you talk about what you were bringing up your father and how that raw emotion just kind of comes out to show within the tribe, if you will, that this process, that even as we're healing and we're doing well, and you may be speaking on podcasts, you may be writing books, we're still ever healing. We're still ever having to deal with these traumas, these pains that keep coming up with us. And in showing that, people hope every single day, no matter how strong you might be on whatever social media platforms you are and the things, people are like, man, I can't wait for my life to fucking get there. But holy shit, even when your life is there, you're sucking it up in the moments, in the micro moments of the day. So thank you so much for that, man. I think that is the huge superpower of all of this, is showing the daily struggle, no matter how you might be towards what you think of the end state of your healing, in your traumas, spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, all those things. Thank you for sharing that. And, and what your dad did for you that you had brought up, living by example, not leading by example, but living by example, showing your kids, and what we do, and all of us are leaders in some way, shape, or form. Somebody looks up to us. You're living in the moment, and if you can live somewhat vulnerably, if you can live somewhat vulnerably and show people, just like we're doing here, you're showing people how to survive these traumas. You're showing people how to survive the adversity. So thank you, man. Really, really look forward to speaking with you more about it. And Sarah, as always, you've always put together such a great thing.
Chris, you're awesome, man. I mean, honestly, I would love to connect with you and talk about this, and because there's multiple angles. You bring up a great point. There's multiple angles of betrayal too. Betrayal from the perspective of the person who does it and what they're dealing with. I think we can go deeper on that, because that's fascinating to me. But dude, also, yeah, absolutely. I think you bring up a great point. I was speaking on this yesterday to a group of kids at a local high school, and I was doing the same thing. I was kind of sharing them, like, I know your life isn't perfect. You're sitting here and you all have the same uniforms, pretty hair, nice done shoes. I get that. I know you're going home, and some of you are going home to monsters. Some of you are going home to bad situations. I think just being real, I think that's really, really important. So thanks for saying that, man. Like, this journey is ongoing for all of us. We're all, no matter what success we have, I think there's triggers, there's baggage that opens up and it takes us back, and we have to find ways to keep momentum and get back on the horse and not eat an elephant in one bite. Like, I think those lessons are applicable at any stage of our journey, and I do think it's crazy. I've seen that when people are like, oh, I've got it, I got to this level, this point of I'm successful, and I don't feel that way. I don't think anybody can feel that way. How can you? It's a journey. I don't think you ever really get to a destination. I think you have all these amazing exits. Like, oh, I want to get off at this exit. I'm at a point now where I see this exit up ahead. I have the money, the resources, the emotional bandwidth to get off this exit and enjoy the beach for a week. I can do that. Then I'm going to get back on the journey, the road, and I'm going to get off this exit. Like, it gives us those opportunities, but I don't think you ever know where you're really going. I mean, who really knows? Like, Sarah, you sit here today. Do you know where you're going to be 30 years from now? I don't think anybody does.
Probably dead, but
Not that old.
in my new life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, I'm just funny. I mean, probably, but yeah. You know what? So beautifully said. And Chris and Chad, I didn't know that you guys didn't really know each other. You definitely should know each other. I know you both, love you both. You guys would be great friends and have a lot to talk about. So awesome. Glad you were on today, Chris. Fabulous. Holly.
I just wanted to address the, I think Barry first brought it up, the whole idea of how important grief is. Our society likes to avoid grief and run away from it. And a lot of people have asked me what it is that has helped me to move forward and find joy and hope after my son was killed. And it was tough. It was, and it will never not hurt. It will never not bring me to this point where my throat's full and my eyes are getting watery telling you that. I mean, it's always there, but it's different. And I have found that hope has been restored and joy has been restored. They coexist now with that pain. And it's because I didn't run away from the grief. I wasn't afraid to let myself really, really cry out. That's not even a word. It was more than a cry. Howl in that pain. And take the time, and Chad, to watch how you're letting yourself feel everything shows me that you understand that. And I just, my son was killed over 13 years ago now. And it's only been in the last 6 years, 5 years, that I have actually found my purpose and my meaning following his death. It took a while, and it took a while of walking through dark days and trusting and feeling grateful for what remained, letting myself feel not only that really, really sadness, but also so much remains in this world and my life, so much beauty, and appreciating that. And for me, grief, I look at grief as my companion. It's my lifelong companion. It's never going to go away. And it has taught me to appreciate. It's taught me gratitude. It's taught me it, and it showed me that now when I see the good now, it's so much brighter. It's so much more vivid because I've seen the worst. I've been in the depths. For a mom, there's no greater pain. There's just no greater pain. And so I know that. So now the good is so bright, the beauty, the colors. Those first few years, the world was black and white. I walked around in a film noir, there was no beauty. There was no anything. I felt lonely. And I have a huge family and lots of friends, I felt like I was in this really lonely space for years. But when working through it and dealing with that, not being afraid of grief, letting it teach me, the colors returned, and they returned brighter than ever. And so I just see that in you, that you're letting that grief do its thing. You're letting yourself feel and express. And one of the things that we share in this our storytelling workshops is that storytelling heals the brain. And I'm watching you do it right there and healing your brain, because you're talking about things, and it heals our brain, it heals our heart, it restores our purpose and our meaning. It's a beautiful tool for recovering, and it is a constant. It's like you were saying, we're never recovered. It's just always, and everything you're doing, all the work you're doing now, helping this homeless man and speaking to high school kids, every time you do that, I bet the reciprocal comes back to you. When you've been there for someone else, you're healed even more, and you've helped them heal. So it's a powerful tool. Thanks.
Wow. Thanks, Holly, for sharing that. I don't know what that's like to lose a child, and you're so positive explaining this story. Just shows me how much work you've done to put into it, and to see colors come back. And I guess that's the essence of resilience. I mean, other than, I don't know what else is worse than losing a child. So I don't know how you can come back from that unless you absolutely make a commitment to rebound, respond, to find the colors in life again. So I celebrate you. And those are the examples that you share for all of us that help us, because we're all going to leave here, and God forbid something negative happens. It's part of life. We know that now. So there's this influence, there's this positive member of this tribe that has been through these horrible things, that have bounced back and be resilient. That's somebody I can call if I'm having a bad time. So I just think it's powerful. Like, I didn't know who you were, and now I know who you are. It's thanks for sharing it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to get to Chris in a second, because he had his hand up. But Holly, I just again want to just thank you for your absolute courage. I am talking to a mother of 4 sons who lost her 3rd son, and I am a mother of 4 sons whose 3rd son is deployed. And I always think of you. I will get emotional right now too. You are an incredible light of courage, and I see the ripple effect. I've seen it in person, the ripple effect of your courage, and I want to thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for being on this call too. Thank you, my friend. Okay, Chris. I thought I saw your hand up before. Jim.
Not me.
Well, I just was going to circle back to something you said, Chad. That that you made a comment about the person who's betraying you, and where they sit, and I've looked at that, right? Because I mentioned, I felt betrayed, by a boss, but I recognize that he was probably, had 5 people above him that were, causing him pressure, and putting that person in that position, and so, I talk in our leadership development stuff of, you need to think about what your boss's boss is doing, right? Because that's sometimes driving some of that stuff that then comes down on you in a manner that is, that betrayal. The struggle, I think, always is, I look at it and I go, well, why didn't that person have the ability to step up like I did, to say no, that kind of thing. And so that's I think that's the conflict, right? Is you wonder, you just kind of wonder, well, what was it that just didn't allow that person to do the right thing in that regard? So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate sharing. It's funny. My boss was my former chief was kind of the person I was in conflict with. Was he was somebody came up in the agency, so I knew him very well, and we would have lunch 3 times a week for many years when we were undercover, and he would tell me how just personal issues in his life. You know, he didn't get the nurturing that he wanted growing up, and he always feels the need to prove himself. So, you know, definitely a broken man in some regards. Heck, we're all probably broken to some degree. But I think knowing that, I know for sure, knowing his background and those experiences, how personally vulnerable he was to me, you know, then when he turns around and gets this position and then kind of leads in a very dysfunctional way, which in itself, clinician would argue, should you be shocked by that? No, I shouldn't be shocked by that. I know he's a broken individual. So of course he's going to make broken decisions. That's where the betrayal comes. You know, now I know what he's been through. I know what he's experienced. I was a listening ear, a sounding board. And for you to take this kind of action was just, you know, it was a gut shot, man. A gut shot of all gut shots, like we've all had to some degree. So yeah, I empathize with you on that. I know what that's like.
Yeah. It does. It is a reminder, though, that, you know, our past doesn't have to define us. Like if any of these people start maybe growing some courage, you know, the way that we've had to have courage in different things in our life. I mean, that is the great thing, is that we're still breathing. Every single person who is still alive is still breathing, and there's still time to do the right thing, to have the courage to reconcile with maybe the people that were hurt when we didn't have courage or whatever. So it's a great point. And then Holly.
Sorry, I had one more thing that I wanted to share, especially to you, Chad. When you were talking about your conversation with your dad, this came to me, and it's become one of my mantras. That it's a quote I found last year, and I don't know who wrote it, but it's oftentimes God will use one of our deepest pains to launch us on our greatest and highest calling.
Wow.
And that's my story. I'm sticking with it.
That's incredible. I mean, if you look at all of us, we've all charted some unique path that would have never been charted if not for those events. And I think that's my dad says it all the time. He's like, you can't take away one thing in your life and expect everything else to be the same. You have to go through the good and the bad. That's how you get here, son. And he reminds me of this all the time. So those are the learning lessons, and all the struggle comes from that, you know. And I wish there was a better way, Holly, you know, to learn all these things, but maybe that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Well, I just really appreciate this conversation. Again, Chad, your openness, your vulnerability, your realness is powerful. And it really invites people to heal. So I just want to thank you all so much for this time. Chad, what do you want us to walk away with?
Ooh. Let's be positive today. So the story is not yet written for any of us. And this is in kind of piggybacking what you're saying. And this is where we're going to get into motivational a little bit, but we've all had a finger put in the chest at one time or another in our life, whether it was from a person or whether it was from an event that we're talking about today. Like somebody or something tried to take control of our lives. And they did for a little while, but they didn't win the whole thing. So I guess my point is to all this is I'm 43. I don't feel like I still got a long way. If you're in your 50s, heck, I told my dad he's in his 60s. I said, Dad, you still got time left, because he wants to chart a new course and do something else. And he was like, hey, you're right, son. I still got time left. So I guess his point is our chapters are not written. Our stories aren't over. What if we take all that crap that we've been through, we learn as much as we can learn, we pull our resources, we work together, and we go kick some ass and do amazing things in 2024, 2025, 2026, and we rewrite history books. They're going to talk about this period in American history. I believe that. This technological AI revolution, that's going to be a blurb in some sort of textbook somewhere. And they're going to say, at the same time, there was this weird moral battle going on. And there are a lot of good people suffered in a short period of time. But those same good people endured. Those same good people came together. Those same good people learned, humbled themselves. And guess what? When America needed to be rebuilt and restored, they were leading the charge. And that's the opportunity I think is in front of us. So if that's a mode, you know, if that's a path that has screamed out to you like it has for me, not politics, but just wanting to make things as best as they can be and serving others, then maybe we're on the right road. Maybe we're right where we're supposed to be. Maybe we're learning and gathering steam right now. Maybe this is the point. It's supposed to be done in silence and darkness. And maybe those opportunities, those chapters, the end of the story is still coming. If it's a 15 chapter book, we're in chapter 9. We got and act 3 is yet to come, chapters 11, 12, 13. That's always the best act of the story. It's always when the hero saves the day. So I know that we talked about grief and we sat in some heavy stuff, and we're good at doing that. I think we can also be good about being positive and empowering ourselves and each other, that we're like one of the best ones. We've endured all that stuff. We learned every time somebody runs away from discomfort, which is most people, we're the ones running into it. We're embracing it. So I think we're going to be armed with some serious resilience, some serious wisdom that we're going to take into the next journey, wherever that journey is for us. It's going to be big. I think so.
Fabulous. Can't end any better than that. Chad, thank you so much. All of you, thank you so much. Lots of love to you. And let's make 2024 powerful, like Chad said. Take care, everybody.